Hello, dear students. Welcome to the Bajirao IS Academy. Today is 18th December and we are going to discuss the daily Hindu newspaper analysis. So, in today's session, we are going to discuss three important issues. The first issue is related to Forest Rights Act. This is a marvelous act, and also this editorial is very important because it discusses the historical perspective, the present perspective, and the lacunas in this act and how we can reform it. Then further, we will shift to the second article where we will discuss about selecting election commissioners with respect to the recent bill passed in the Rajya Sabha regarding the appointment procedure of the election commissioner. Then further, we will shift to the last article where we will understand the impact of Israel-Hamas war on the important trade route, that is the Red Sea. And here, what will be the impact on the Asian nations, specifically India, Japan, South Korea, and how we can handle it. So these classes are going to be very interesting. And if you are new to our YouTube channel, please do subscribe, like, share, and also spread to your friend circle. So let's start with our editorial discussion. The first article you can relate with GS paper 2. So when we talk about Forest Right Act, just imagine the livelihood or the lifestyle of the tribal population. So they are majority on the dependence on forest resource, like the trees, like the fruits they get from the trees, and apart from that, there are various resources they get from the forest, and their lifestyle or the livelihood is dependent on these resources. So to recognize their right, the Forest Right Act in 2006 came. But do you know that before this arrival of the act, there was exploitation of the tribals, both in the colonial era or the British era and also post independence era? How we are going to analyze? But first of all, when we talk about this act, so they ensured that the forest governance in India should be strengthened for the protection of the tribal population. Apart from that, the major aim of this act was to ensure that whatever the historical injustice that occurred to these tribal population, that injustice should be eliminated. So that's why this act given more rights regarding the control of the land, control of the forest resource, and that promoted the tribal's autonomy and independency. But even this act got implemented, there are various challenges in terms of implementation, like political opportunism, bureaucratic apathy, and other challenge. But tell me, what do you mean by bureaucratic apathy? And this can be your perfect question for the ethics paper. So this is the important thing to understand. Now we are going to the historical perspective. First of all, when the British colony established in India, before that, the tribals enjoyed lots of autonomy, rights, freedoms with respect to their forest resource. But when the British came, their economic interests were manipulated. Their source of revenue became the forest resource. That's why to extract the timber and other resource, they started restricting the forest for the tribal population. And hence, we can say that with the Colonial Forest Act 1878, the British took the takeover and lead to the marginalization of the tribal community, and it indirectly or directly promoted injustice. Like forests were seen as primarily a timber resource, the interest of the tribal population was not heard, and apart from that, there was a ban on the shifting cultivation, And you know that these tribal population were majorly focused on shifting cultivation. And what do you mean by it? Please tell me in the comment section. So that led to the restriction of the expansion of this tribal population and the resource that they were getting from the forest. And apart from that, biased land survey and settlements on the agricultural land, and apart from forced labor in forest village. Now you have to understand what do you mean by forced labor in forest village. In simple terms, like when the British authority took over the control of land, it became a state property. So what they did, they given certain sort of land to the tribal population that here you can cultivate, but there is a need to provide the labor resource for us. Okay, that was like exchange program. I am giving you some agricultural land, and in return you have to give the labor force. Okay, so that was a form of exploitation. And also there was restricted access to forest produce as it became a state property, and even forest bureaucracy was dominating that time. Okay, so in simple terms, the local community didn't enjoy any right to manage the forest. It became in the hand of the British colonial power, the British authority. So that's why they faced the challenge from historical times. And now, when we talk about the post independence, until and unless this act was implemented, there was serious lacuna as well. Like after independence, there was assimilation or the merging of various princely state and zamindari states into the union, but it didn't address the concern of the tribal population, the tribal rights, the community land rights of these population. So the matter got worsened. And you know that after independence, we were facing the food crisis, the food insecurity. So we started expanding the agricultural land to these region, to the region of the tribal population. So this was like an exploitation of the tribal population in terms of getting their land, in terms of introducing the outsider. And you know that various movements do occur in the past time since post independence for the protection of the tribal rights by these tribal population. Okay, and apart from that, there was various campaigns run by the government like grow more food campaign, and also large dam projects were initiated since the post independence, and that led to the displacement of these population, deforestation of the forest. Okay, so that impacted the livelihood, the population, the life with dignity of this tribal population. And now listen some important thing carefully. So when these were the concern, the government in 1970s and 80s brought two important legislation, that was Wildlife Protection Act 1972 and also the Forest Conservation Act 1980. So that also created another form of injustice to them, because this act has the provision to declare certain area as protected area in the form of wildlife sanctuary, the national park. Okay, so that means there was a restriction to these tribal population in this area, and mostly these area are inhabited by dense forest. And from this previous scenario till the implementation of this act, these tribal population were residing here. But now after this act, with the declaration of protected area, they were rehabilitated, they were taken outside from this protected area. Okay, so that thing was going on. And then we have the coming up of Forest Right Act, okay, 2006. So that try to address the concern of these tribal population, and hence they try to recognize the individual forest right of these tribal population in terms of recognizing their habitation, cultivation rights, and other traditional activity, because these tribal population wants to remain isolated, and hence their progress is dependent on the welfare and the protection of the forest resource Okay, so that's why individual forest rights were recognized, community forest right were recognized. And here I am trying to explain about community forest right. It's like, let's say there is a land, okay, and there is a forest resource here. So in the community forest right, these land and forest resource will be held by community, and all the benefits that will be coming from this land, whether it is minor forest produce and the other produce, so that will be held on the community basis. Okay, so that will manage the interest of all these community, all these people. So that is very very important thing and the concept in the Forest Right Act. Okay, so it ensured decentralized forest governance, linking management authority and responsibility to the community rights. And also, this right reaffirmed by the Supreme Court and Niamguri case. To try to remember this Niamguri case as well for the reference to write in the main censor. Okay, but do everything gone well in this act now? Because there is implementation lacuna, implementation issue, like this right more focused on the individual rights. Okay, but they didn't focus on the implementation of the community rights provision, because the state or the authority clearly known that if we will focus on the community rights more and more, so their interest, the interest of the state, may get affected in terms of launching any project, in terms of launching mining projects. So that's why the individual rights was majorly focused, but the community forest rights was ignored. That is the biggest lacuna in the implementation cover. Okay, and apart from that, the forest bureaucracy that should take care of the tribal rights by giving, by recognizing, by handling the case related to the conflict to the population of the tribals and the state. So they were also ignoring, and the estimate shows that 70 to 90% of the forest in central India should be under community forest right, but still it has not been recognized. Why? Because for the political benefits and the forest bureaucracy, they thinks that their power to these area will get eliminated. Okay, that's the thing. However, certain states done well like Maharashtra, Odisha, Chhattisgarh. So what will be the consequence if the community forest right doesn't get recognized properly? So it can lead to the penetration of mining areas into the domain of the tribal forest land, and that can lead to the violation of their livelihood. And that's why various protests and unrest in India occurred in the past and may occur in the future as well. Okay, and there is another concern that if the community forest right is not get recognized, so the state can easily target this population for voluntary rehabilitation and displacement, for launching of any of the developmental projects in that area, whether it is mining, whether it is establishing dam or the other project. Okay, and apart from that, these benefits the conservationists and the development lobby, because conservationists want the conservation of the forest. Okay, so they want that these tribal populations should be rehabilitated to other locations so that the forest should be protected. Okay, and they do not think that this tribal population takes too much care of these forest resource. Even they treat these forests as the god. Okay, but who will tell to these person? So that is the thing we should understand. So there is a conclusion like, although we have implemented Forest Right Act 2006, but what the promise that we have aimed for, it was undelivered and unfinished. So we need to address the implementation challenge and ensure justice, democracy, sustainable forest management. And for that, political leaders, bureaucrats, environmentalists, they need to act together for the sake, for the interest, for the benefit of the tribal population, so as to eliminate the historical injustice for these people. So that's the end of the article. Now we are shifting to the next editorial discussion that will be covered under GS paper 2. Okay, So that is also very interesting article. You know that election commission is a constitutional body. Okay, and article 324, it talks about the election commission, composition of election commission. But when it talks to appointment procedure of the election commission, election commissioner, the constitution is silent, and this silence led to the conflict of interest and led to the intrusion of various governments in the past to affect the autonomy of the election commission, the election commissioners. So this is the background, and what is the context here? So you need to understand that the election commission is very important in ensuring free and fair election and promoting democracy. And for that I am providing you a context that, let's say, we have about 140 crore population and majority of them are eligible to vote. But who conducts election in India? The election commission. Okay, so tell me, if there is a biasness in the election commissioner, in the authority of the election commissioner, so does it will promote free and fair election or it will not? The chances that it will not. How? Because maybe the government can affect their autonomy by restricting their salary or the perks, or even they can give political benefits in the future, that if you will favor us, we will give you very good post during the retirement age. So this scenario can come. So that's why the autonomy of the election commission is very needed. Like we have the autonomy of the judge of the Supreme Court, autonomy of the CAG, Competitor and Auditor General of India. And when we talk about the autonomy of this body, so it needs to be protected, it needs to be secured, because this body has an important responsibility to conduct election, to protect democracy. Okay, so we will discuss the chronology, how the Supreme Court like suggested the change in appointment procedure, and then the parliament brought the bill, but there is a certain lacuna here. Okay, so what is the context? On December 12th, the Rajya Sabha passed the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners appointment, condition of office and terms of office bill 2023. Okay, so from this bill, it will be going to Lok Sabha, and after presidential assent, it will become an act. Then all the provisions in this bill will get implemented. So what does this bill talks about? The procedure for appointment of CEC, that is Chief Election Commissioner, and other two election commissioners. Okay, so when we talk about the procedure for appointment, the constitution is silent. Okay, so earlier the appointment was done by the president, and still it will be done by the president, but there will be a certain guidelines to be followed before appointing the election commissioner and chief election commissioner. Okay, so when we talk about the article 324, so we have already discussed that there is no independent mechanism for the appointment of the election commissioner. Okay, apart from that, the condition of service is not mentioned in the constitution, but in existing parliamentary law it was mentioned, but there is a lacuna here. So that's why a person named Anup Baranwal in 2015, they filed an PIL, public interest litigation, and they argued that why there should not be a collegium like system for the appointment of chief election commissioner and election commissioner. So collegium like system, like we have the appointment procedure of the judge of the Supreme Court and the High Court, we have collegium, like certain set of judge will sit in this body and they will recommend, they will suggest the name of judge where there is a vacancy. So it was not in the case of the appointment procedure of election commission or the election commissioners. Okay, so this person argued that there should be the procedure. So Supreme Court understood that yes, this is important suggestion, and apart from that, historically, various committee and reports suggested that there should be a recommendatory body that should recommend the name. Then after that, the president should appoint. Okay, so there is extra edge to be added before the final appointment of the election commissioner. Okay, like we have the Dinesh Goswami committee law commission in its 255th report. Okay, so the suggestion was that after analyzing these reports from the Supreme Court, that the chief election commissioner and the other election commissions should be appointed by a committee consisting of the prime minister, the chief justice of India, and leader of opposition. So these three persons will recommend the name to the president, and president will be going to appoint it. Okay, so that was the case. So try to remember this, that the court recommendation was selection committee where prime minister, CGI, and leader of opposition will be the 3% that will recommend. But what this bill try to amend it, this bill eliminates the CGI. Okay, try to think about that. Okay, so it eliminates CGI. That means the recommendation will be appointed based on selection committee, and the selection committee will be consist of PM, prime minister, leader of opposition, and union cabinet minister nominated by PM. So you can see that in this 3-person selection committee, 2 will be from the government side and 1 will be from the opposition side. So the decision is taken by majority vote. So that means the government's intrusion is still there, whereas the Supreme Court suggested that CGI should be there. So that is the concern highlighted in this bill. Okay, so this needs to be handled on. So this is the concern, that departure from Supreme Court's recommendation where CGI was excluded in this bill. Okay, and before selection committee there will be a search committee. Okay, the search committee will be headed by law and justice minister, and this search committee will shortlist some candidates, and then these candidates will be sent to the selection committee, and then selection committee will recommend certain names to be cleared by the president. So that is the procedure. Okay, so this is the concern, and that's why there are many criticism regarding this bill. So when we talk about what are the available best practice at the global level, so for South Africa we can say that there is the recommendation of president of constitutional court, human rights court, gender equality representatives are taken care of. And for the United Kingdom, there is a approval needed from the Lok Sabha, that is the House of Commons. Okay, the lower house is known as House of Commons there. And for the US, there is a president appoints that person, and that will be confirmed by the Senate. Okay, so this is the procedure that goes on at the international level. But where when we talk about this bill, so it is still tilted in favor of the present government. Okay, so that needs to be addressed. So there is a question for discussion for you, that does the new law adequately address the concern about the Election Commission of India's independence? If yes, how? If no, how? Try to give your answer. Okay, so now we are shifting to the third article, that is related to the GS paper 2, and here you have to understand that whatever the war is going on between Israel and Hamas, okay, here it is Israel. Okay, so that is going to impact the Red Sea route, and try to understand the importance of Red Sea, that it is a very important water channel that connects the west with the east. So any trade from east to west or west to east that is going to happen, it is very necessary that it will cross through Red Sea, or otherwise it can cross through this region. But do you understand that this region is very much far? So that will add extra cost and burden and security concern. So this route is better preferred. But do you know that with the going on of Israel Hamas war, there is disturbances in the route. Okay, and apart from that, what we are saying, due to the escalation of war, that the Houthis rebellion in Yemen, which is being supported from Iran side. Okay, so they are trying to create ruckus, they are trying to create disturbance in this Red Sea pathway, and they are launching missile attack, drone attack, and this is impacting the trade, the global trade scenario with respect to the west or the east. And for that, India is also very concerned with, because India do imports or exports various products, oils, natural gas from this route. Okay, because here this is the Suez Canal. So from Bab el Mandeb to Red Sea to Suez Canal to Europe to other Western country. And what is the significance of Red Sea? That it controls about 15% of the global trade. Okay, and if this route gets disturbed, so these global trade will be getting affected. And now we are seeing that due to the escalation of the war, the Houthi is going to attack this route, and there is a disruption of regional stability, and there is a threat to the shipping, and it can have a potential impact on Asian economy like India, Japan, South Korea, even China, because India do have the passageway for their products, for their shipping from this route. And historically we have this type of incident, but not such serious in nature, and we have also dealt with it. But now we are seeing that escalation is going, and the US is also warning the Houthis or the Yemen that if you will try to create requests in the pathway of the shipping, then we will also not leave you. And that's why we are seeing that US is deploying certain ships, naval ships, military ships in the Red Sea to counter the Houthi threat. And there is a call for multinational task force around Bab el Mandeb Strait. Okay, and here there is an important country you should note, the Djibouti. And what is the importance of Djibouti? That there is a various military base present here for the US, for the South Korea, for the Japan, and many more country. Okay, so why they like put some of the naval base here? So that piracy should be controlled, so that the security of the ships should get protected. So that's why US is now like challenging the Houthis that if you will do certain things in a bad manner, we will reply with a stronger action. Okay, so when we talk about the impact on the Asian economy, there can be a various impact with respect to the trade, with respect to the economic. Okay, and for India, we are dependent on oil security. Okay, and we try to import from this region, and also we have various trades with the Western countries, and for that the pathway is via Red Sea, via Suez Canal. Okay, so earlier India launched Operation Sankalp in the Persian Gulf since 2019, where we try to protect our ships. And in 2012, India joined China, Japan, and South Korea for coordinated joint patrols in the Gulf of Aden. That's why you see, you hear, you also remember for the prelims, various exercises done in these regions to protect the ships, to protect the interest and the security of the country. Okay, so when we talk about conclusion, so this war do have a significant impact, the significant escalation on other domain, including the shipping routes as well. And we need specifically the Asian country like India, Japan, and South Korea as collaboration, so that we can protect our interest, we can protect from these hurdles. And already we addressed these type of concern like piracy concerns in Somalia, and where Somalia is located. Somalia, you can observe that here Somalia is located here. This is Somalia. Okay, so earlier, like piracy incident was very much occurring there. So we as a country try to eliminate this piracy issue by putting our ships, putting our naval base here near the Djibouti. Okay, that is the thing, and hence There is a talk that we should try to stop this war as soon as possible, otherwise it has a repercussions in other domain as well. So that is the end of the article, friends. Hope you enjoyed it. And now we are ending our session, and for that you have a question to attempt for the prelims, and pause the video, try to solve it, and also comment your answer in the chat box. So thank you, friends, have a nice day. We will meet again with next sort of articles. Thank you.